Sarah Mitchell steps into her office early morning, reviewing her notes for an important case while sipping her favorite jasmine tea. Her phone lights up with messages from colleagues asking for advice on complex legal matters, a typical start to her day as one of the city's most respected attorneys. The morning sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, casting a warm glow on the numerous awards and certificates adorning her walls. Her assistant James knocks gently on the doorframe. "Ms. Mitchell, your 8 a.m. conference call with the Pro Bono Committee starts in 5 minutes. Also, Judge Reynolds called earlier. He'd like your input on the new mentorship program for first-year law students." Sarah nods, adjusting her navy blazer as she settles into her ergonomic chair. Between sips of tea, she notices a familiar name in her email inbox, Marcus Thompson, her first mentee from 10 years ago. Now a successful civil rights attorney himself, he's seeking her guidance on a challenging case involving educational equality. A smile crosses her face as she remembers their weekly meetings in this very office, discussing legal strategies and the importance of perseverance in the face of adversity. The conference call begins promptly at 8 a.m. Sarah leads the discussion on expanding legal aid services to underserved communities, her voice carrying the same passion that drove her to become an attorney 20 years ago. The committee members listen intently as she shares innovative ideas for partnership programs between private firms and community organizations. As the call wraps up, Sarah's eyes land on the day's schedule. Her afternoon includes a routine hearing before a visiting judge, a straightforward contract dispute that shouldn't take more than an hour. She makes a mental note to arrive early, maintaining her perfect record of courthouse punctuality. The morning proceeds with a steady rhythm of client meetings and case reviews. Sarah's meticulous attention to detail shows in every document she handles, every advice she offers. Her colleagues often marvel at how she balances her roles as a practicing attorney and the Bar Association president. But for Sarah, it's simply about efficient time management and genuine love for the legal profession. During her lunch break, she reviews the latest draft of her upcoming speech for the annual Bar Association dinner. The theme centers on making the legal system more accessible and equitable for all. Her personal experiences, both challenges and triumphs, weave through the narrative, creating a powerful message about progress and perseverance. A knock on her door interrupts her review. It's Lisa Chen, a promising second-year associate, seeking guidance on a complex corporate litigation case. Sarah welcomes the interruption, remembering her own early days and the mentors who took time to guide her. She spends 20 minutes walking Lisa through potential strategies, watching the young attorney's eyes light up with understanding. As the afternoon approaches, Sarah begins gathering her materials for the upcoming hearing. Her phone buzzes with a text from her daughter, a picture of an A+ on her constitutional law midterm. Pride swells in her chest. Her passion for law seems to have passed on to the next generation. James appears again, holding a fresh cup of jasmine tea. "Your case files are prepared, and I've double-checked the hearing time. Do you need anything else before you head to the courthouse?" Sarah shakes her head, grateful for his efficiency. She plans to review the case details one final time before the hearing, though she knows the facts by heart. Looking at her watch, a graduation gift from her parents when she finished law school, Sarah sees she has 45 minutes until the hearing. Perfect timing for a thorough security check and a brief conversation with the courthouse staff, many of whom she's known for years. She stands, smoothing her skirt and gathering her belongings, unaware that this routine afternoon hearing would soon become a pivotal moment in her career's ongoing narrative about perseverance, dignity, and positive change. The courthouse buzzes with activity as Sarah navigates through security. A last-minute call from a client about an urgent family matter delays her entrance to Courtroom B, where visiting Judge Harold Thompson has just begun his first session in this district. Security Officer Mike Wilson greets her with a warm smile, having watched her enter these doors countless times over the years. "Good afternoon, Ms. Mitchell. Busy day ahead," he asks, efficiently scanning her briefcase while maintaining their friendly conversation. Sarah responds with a genuine smile, discussing Mike's daughter who recently started college, a path made possible by the scholarship program she helped establish. The marble corridors echo with footsteps and hushed conversations as attorneys, clients, and court staff hurry to their destinations. Sarah checks her phone one last time, noting several missed calls from Mrs. Rodriguez, a pro bono client facing a critical custody hearing next week. Her conscience won't let her ignore the calls, knowing the emotional weight of family cases. Finding a quiet corner near the courthouse's grand staircase, Sarah returns Mrs. Rodriguez's call. The conversation is meant to be brief, but the distress in her client's voice makes it impossible to rush. The woman's ex-husband has threatened to take their children out of state, a situation requiring immediate attention and reassurance. Through the tall windows, Sarah notices dark clouds gathering, matching the growing tension she feels about her increasingly delayed entrance to Courtroom B. She glances at her watch. The Rodriguez call has taken precious minutes, and Judge Thompson's reputation for strict punctuality is well known among legal circles. The courthouse regulars, clerks, bailiffs, and fellow attorneys notice her unusual tardiness. Rebecca Martinez, a court translator, passes by with a concerned look. Judge Thompson started promptly at 2 o'clock, she whispers, hurrying toward another courtroom. Sarah nods in acknowledgement, gathering her materials with increased urgency. As she approaches Courtroom B, Sarah encounters David Chen, a longtime colleague from the district attorney's office. "Be careful in there," he murmurs. "Thompson's been particularly rigid today. Already lectured 2 attorneys about procedural formalities." Sarah appreciates the warning but maintains her composed demeanor, knowing that professionalism is her strongest asset. Outside the courtroom doors, she quickly reviews her case notes one final time. The contract dispute seems straightforward, a disagreement between 2 small business owners over delivery terms. Under normal circumstances, she could present this case in her sleep, but today's delay has added an unexpected layer of complexity. Her phone vibrates again, another urgent message from Mrs. Rodriguez. Sarah's finger hovers over the silent button, her mind racing between her professional obligation to the court and her moral duty to a client in crisis. The decision takes only seconds, but those seconds prove crucial. The heavy wooden doors of Courtroom B loom before her, their ornate designs a testament to the building's century-old history. Sarah takes a deep breath, centering herself as she's done countless times before. Through the door's windows, she catches a glimpse of Judge Thompson's stern expression as he reviews documents at his bench. Just as she reaches for the door handle, her phone chimes softly, the sound seemingly amplified by the quiet hallway. Sarah quickly silences it, but knows the damage is done. The same device that allows her to serve her clients more effectively has now become a liability in the formal courtroom setting. With practiced grace, she pushes open the heavy door, its subtle creak drawing every eye in the room. The afternoon sun streaming through the high windows casts long shadows across the courtroom floor, creating an almost theatrical atmosphere for what's about to unfold. Judge Thompson looks up from his papers, his expression hardening at the disruption. Sarah moves toward the defense table with measured steps, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor. The familiar faces of court staff and fellow attorneys watch with a mix of sympathy and anticipation, aware that this visiting judge's strict reputation is about to clash with one of their most respected legal professionals. The heavy wooden doors creak slightly as Sarah enters the courtroom. Her phone, accidentally left unmuted after the urgent call, plays a soft melody. Judge Thompson, known for his strict adherence to protocol, looks up from his bench with stern disapproval. The courtroom's atmosphere shifts immediately, like a sudden drop in temperature. Judge Thompson's steel-gray eyes fix upon Sarah as she makes her way to the defense table. The other attorneys present, many who have known Sarah for years, straighten in their seats, sensing the brewing tension. Counsel approached the bench immediately. Judge Thompson's voice cuts through the silence. His words carry the weight of authority honed over 15 years on the bench in a smaller, more traditional district. Sarah moves forward with dignified composure, her leather briefcase held firmly at her side. The afternoon sunlight, streaming through the tall windows, catches the silver threads in Judge Thompson's hair, highlighting his rigid posture. At the bench, he leans forward slightly, his voice lowered but no less severe. "Do you make it a habit to disrupt court proceedings, counselor?" The question hangs in the air like suspended dust motes in the sunbeams. Sarah begins to explain the situation with Mrs. Rodriguez, her voice measured and professional. "Your Honor, I apologize for the disruption. I was handling an urgent family law matter involving." Judge Thompson raises his hand, cutting off her explanation mid-sentence. The gallery watches in tense silence. Among them sits Mark Henderson, a veteran court reporter who has documented thousands of cases. He pauses his typing, recognizing that this moment might become one of those courthouse stories that circulate for years to come. "Ms. Mitchell," Judge Thompson continues, his tone carrying decades of traditional courtroom expectations, "I have reviewed your filing for today's case. A simple contract dispute, is it not? Yet you choose to enter my courtroom late, allowing your electronic devices to disrupt proceedings." The sun shifts behind a cloud, casting the courtroom in momentary shadow. Sarah stands perfectly still, her posture reflecting years of experience in handling difficult situations. The weight of her phone in her pocket seems to grow heavier with each passing second. From the corner of her eye, Sarah notices Maria Santos, the court clerk, frantically shuffling through papers. Maria's expression suggests she's trying to find something important, something that might change the direction of this increasingly tense interaction. Judge Thompson continues his admonishment, each word carefully chosen and delivered with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. The sanctity of this courtroom, counselor, is not a matter of convenience. It is the cornerstone of our legal system. The other attorneys present exchange glances, some of them having witnessed Sarah argue successfully before the state Supreme Court, others knowing her reputation for mentoring young lawyers in courtroom etiquette. The irony of the situation is palpable. A junior attorney from another firm, seated in the back row, scribbles furiously in his notepad. Whether he's documenting this as a lesson in what not to do or recording an example of maintaining composure under pressure remains unclear. The wall clock's steady ticking seems to grow louder in the tension-filled silence. Judge Thompson adjusts his reading glasses, reaching for a form that Sarah recognizes all too well, the contempt citation sheet. His movements are deliberate, almost ceremonial. "Your Honor," Sarah begins again, her voice clear and respectful. "I understand the importance of courtroom decorum." But once again, Judge Thompson raises his hand for silence. The afternoon light returns, casting long shadows across his stern features. The bailiff shifts uncomfortably, having witnessed countless times when Sarah has helped maintain order in this very courtroom during complex, emotional cases. Today, however, she stands alone before an unfamiliar judge who sees only the surface of a moment, not the depth of a career. Time seems to slow as Judge Thompson picks up his pen, the silver cap catching the light as he removes it. The scratching of his signature across the citation form echoes in the hushed courtroom, each stroke adding to the building tension of this unexpected confrontation between judicial authority and professional reputation. This level of tardiness and disruption shows a clear disregard for court procedures, Judge Thompson declares, his voice carrying across the now silent courtroom. He proceeds to issue a fine, while Sarah calmly places her briefcase on the defense table. The amount, $500, hangs in the air like a heavy cloud. The gallery collectively holds its breath, many of them familiar faces who have witnessed Sarah mentor young lawyers on the very principles of professionalism she's now being accused of disregarding. Her composed expression never wavers, though her fingers press slightly harder against her leather portfolio. Among the spectators, Linda Chen, a first-year associate whom Sarah had guided through her first motion hearing last week, watches with wide eyes. The contrast between Sarah's recent advice about courtroom etiquette and her current situation creates an uncomfortable knot in Linda's stomach. At the clerk's desk, Maria continues searching through her files with increasing urgency. Her movements, though subtle, betray a sense of frustration as she glances between her computer screen and a stack of official documents. She catches the eye of Tom Peterson, the opposing counsel, who seems to understand her unspoken message. Judge Thompson adjusts his reading glasses, reviewing the contempt citation with methodical precision. Let the record reflect that counsel's behavior demonstrates a concerning lack of respect for this court's time and procedures. His words echo off the wood-paneled walls, each syllable carefully enunciated. Sarah maintains her professional demeanor, though those who know her well might notice the slight tightening around her eyes. Her hand moves to her blazer pocket, where her phone now sits silently. The same phone that had earlier connected her to Mrs. Rodriguez's urgent custody matter. The afternoon sun continues its journey across the courtroom, creating shifting patterns through the vintage glass windows. These same windows have witnessed decades of legal proceedings, but few as laden with irony as this one. A distant clock chimes 3 times, marking the hour. Several veteran attorneys in the gallery exchange knowing looks. Jerome Washington, who has practiced law alongside Sarah for 15 years, shakes his head slightly. His expression suggests he's calculating how long it will take for this situation to resolve itself once certain information comes to light. The court reporter's fingers hover over his stenotype machine, capturing every word of this increasingly tense scenario. His years of experience tell him this is no ordinary contempt citation. There's an undercurrent of something more significant brewing. Judge Thompson continues his admonishment, unaware of the subtle shifts in the courtroom's atmosphere. It is my hope, counselor, that this financial penalty will serve as a reminder of the standards we uphold in this courthouse. He pauses, peering over his glasses at Sarah. Meanwhile, Sarah's mind races through potential responses, weighing each option with the careful consideration that has marked her 20-year career. Her thoughts briefly return to Mrs. Rodriguez, reinforcing her conviction that responding to that urgent call was the right decision, despite the current consequences. The bailiff, James Morton, shifts his weight uncomfortably. Having worked with Sarah on numerous high-profile cases, he's witnessed her unwavering dedication to court procedures. The dissonance between her reputation and the current situation is almost palpable. At the prosecution table, Tom Peterson's discomfort becomes increasingly evident. His fingers drum silently on his legal pad as he glances between Sarah, Judge Thompson, and Maria's increasingly frustrated document search. The weight of unspoken information seems to press down on his shoulders. A young law student, observing the proceedings from the back row, frantically scribbles notes. This scene would surely become a topic of discussion in tomorrow's legal ethics class, though perhaps not in the way Judge Thompson might expect. The sunlight catches the gold lettering on one of Sarah's case files, the same case files that have helped her win landmark decisions and earn her current position. The irony of her situation continues to build, like pressure in a sealed container, waiting for the right moment to release. The regular courthouse staff exchange subtle glances. Maria, the court clerk of 15 years, tries catching the judge's attention by holding up an important document. The document contains the monthly Bar Association newsletter, featuring Sarah's picture on the front page. Maria's movements become more deliberate as she rises from her desk, the glossy newsletter catching the afternoon light. The front page clearly displays Sarah's professional headshot above the headline, State Bar Association President launches innovative mentorship program. Her fingers tremble slightly, knowing the importance of getting this information to Judge Thompson. The courtroom's familiar faces show varying degrees of recognition as they spot the newsletter in Maria's hands. Deputy Williams, standing by the entrance, straightens his posture as he recalls Sarah's recent speech at the Police Legal Partnership Conference, where she'd outlined new strategies for community engagement. Robert Chen, a senior partner from a neighboring firm, leans forward in his seat, his eyes moving between Judge Thompson and the newsletter. His expression suggests he's calculating the precise moment this situation will shift, like a chess player anticipating a crucial move. Through the tall windows, clouds drift across the sun, creating alternating patterns of light and shadow in the courtroom. These changing lights seem to mirror the shifting dynamics about to unfold. Sarah remains composed at the defense table, organizing her papers with steady hands. Judge Thompson continues reviewing additional citations, unaware of Maria's increasingly urgent attempts to gain his attention. His voice carries the weight of authority as he details the importance of courtroom protocol, each word adding to the growing tension in the room. In the gallery, a law student nudges his colleague, pointing discreetly at the newsletter's headline. Their whispered conversation adds to the low murmur building in the courtroom. The irony of the situation begins to spread like ripples in a pond, reaching every corner of the wood-paneled room. Maria finally succeeds in catching Tom Peterson's eye. The opposing counsel understands immediately, his posture shifting as he prepares to address the court. His 20 years of courtroom experience tell him timing is crucial in situations like this. The wall clock ticks steadily, marking each moment of this increasingly remarkable afternoon. Its sound seems to grow louder in the tension-filled air, counting down to an inevitable revelation. Sarah adjusts her glasses, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the building anticipation around her. At the Clark station, Maria places the newsletter prominently on her desk, its glossy surface reflecting the afternoon light. The masthead of the State Bar Association seems to glow, drawing attention to Sarah's role as its leader. Several attorneys in the gallery notice this deliberate display. Judge Thompson pauses in his admonishment, perhaps sensing the subtle change in the courtroom's atmosphere. His years on the bench have taught him to read rooms, though today's reading seems incomplete. He glances briefly at Maria's desk, but returns to his citations without registering the significance of the document. Sarah maintains her professional composure, though those familiar with her might notice the slight arch of her eyebrow, an expression she often uses when preparing to argue complex constitutional matters before the Supreme Court. Her hands rest calmly on her legal pad, waiting. The afternoon sun emerges fully from behind the clouds, illuminating the courtroom in warm light. This natural spotlight seems to highlight the growing disconnect between Judge Thompson's perception and reality. The tension builds like a symphony approaching its crescendo. Tom Peterson rises slowly from his chair, straightening his tie. His motion draws Judge Thompson's attention, creating the opening Maria has been seeking. The newsletter on her desk catches the light once more, its headline now clearly visible to anyone looking in that direction. The moment hangs in the air, precious seconds ticking by as Tom clears his throat. His eyes meet Sarah's briefly, conveying both apology and respect. The entire courtroom seems to hold its breath, waiting for the words that will bridge the gap between assumption and reality. Tom Peterson, the opposing counsel who has known Sarah for years, stands up with a respectful smile. Your Honor, I believe you might want to know that Ms. Mitchell currently serves as the president of our State Bar Association. The words land in the courtroom like a perfectly placed chess piece. Judge Thompson's hand, still gripping his pen over the citation papers, freezes mid-motion. The afternoon sunlight, streaming through the windows, illuminates the subtle change in his complexion, from judicial sternness to dawning realization. Maria seizes this moment to approach the bench, the Bar Association newsletter held carefully in both hands. The front page catches the light, making Sarah's professional headshot unmistakably clear. Below it, the headline reads, Bar President Mitchell implements groundbreaking judicial conduct guidelines. Judge Thompson adjusts his reading glasses, leaning forward to examine the document Maria respectfully places before him. His eyes move deliberately across the page, taking in not just Sarah's title, but the extensive list of her recent accomplishments, spearheading judicial reform, establishing mentorship programs, and receiving the National Justice Award. The gallery watches as the judge's expression shifts through a series of micro-reactions: surprise, recognition, and finally, a dawning understanding. His fingers release the pen he'd been holding, letting it roll slightly on his desk. The sound seems unusually loud in the hushed courtroom. Sarah remains composed at the defense table, her posture reflecting the same professional dignity she's maintained throughout her career. Her eyes meet Judge Thompson's briefly, conveying neither triumph nor reproach, just the steady gaze of a seasoned legal professional. "I see," Judge Thompson finally says, his voice carrying a different tone now. He removes his glasses, placing them carefully on the bench. The afternoon light catches the silver frames, creating a brief flash that seems to punctuate this moment of revelation. Tom Peterson remains standing, his presence serving as a bridge between the earlier tension and the current shift in atmosphere. Ms. Mitchell's leadership in our legal community has been instrumental in promoting exactly the kind of professional standards Your Honor values so highly, he adds carefully. The other attorneys in the courtroom, many of whom have benefited from Sarah's mentorship over the years, straighten in their seats. The irony of the situation hangs in the air like the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams. The very person being lectured about professionalism has quite literally written the book on it. Judge Thompson clears his throat, his hands now folded carefully over the citation he'd been preparing. The papers seemed to burn under his fingers, their purpose suddenly transformed from instruments of discipline to artifacts of an uncomfortable misunderstanding. Maria returns to her desk, but not before placing several additional documents before the judge. Printouts of Sarah's recent keynote address at the National Judicial Conference, her published articles on courtroom decorum, and her upcoming schedule of lectures at the State Judicial College. The clock on the wall ticks steadily forward, marking each second of this transformative moment. Judge Thompson takes time to review each document, his expression growing increasingly thoughtful. The room remains silent, respecting the gravity of this revelation and its implications. Finally, Judge Thompson looks up, his demeanor noticeably altered. The stern judge from moments ago has been replaced by someone more reflective, more aware of the complexities that can lie beneath surface appearances. His eyes scan the courtroom, noting the familiar faces who had watched this scene unfold. The sun shifts once again, casting long shadows across the courtroom floor. These shadows seem to underscore the lesson being learned about judgment, assumptions, and the importance of seeing beyond immediate circumstances. The weight of the moment settles over the courtroom like a heavy velvet curtain. The courtroom atmosphere shifts as Judge Thompson processes this information. His expression changes upon realizing that the attorney he just found is the same person whose legal articles he had studied during his judicial training. "Ms. Mitchell," he begins, his voice carrying a different weight now. The late afternoon sun casts long shadows across his face as he carefully folds his reading glasses. "I believe I owe you an apology." The words echo slightly in the now silent courtroom, carrying the gravity of judicial humility. Sarah rises gracefully from her chair, her professional demeanor unchanged. The same poise that guided her through countless high-stakes cases now serves her in this delicate moment. "Your Honor, if I may." Her voice carries neither triumph nor resentment, but rather the measured tone of someone accustomed to building bridges. The gallery watches as Sarah approaches the bench, carrying with her the notes from her earlier phone call. "I was delayed today because a domestic violence survivor needed immediate legal assistance. Her children's safety was at risk." She places the notes carefully on the bench, the paper containing the hastily written details of Mrs. Rodriguez's situation. Judge Thompson reviews the notes, his expression softening further. The same attention to detail that made him quick to enforce rules now allows him to appreciate the complexity of Sarah's position. The afternoon light catches the silver in his hair as he nods slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Maria, the court clerk, quietly distributes copies of Sarah's recent Bar Association article on balancing judicial efficiency with humanitarian legal obligations. The rustling of papers fills the courtroom as attorneys and observers read the piece, many nodding in recognition of the principles being demonstrated in real time. "Your Honor," Sarah continues, her voice carrying the wisdom of decades in practice, "perhaps this moment offers us all an opportunity." She gestures to the young lawyers in the gallery, their faces eager and attentive. Every challenge in our profession carries the potential for growth and understanding. Judge Thompson leans forward, his earlier sternness replaced by genuine interest. The same dedication to judicial procedure that prompted his harsh response now fuels his willingness to learn. The wall clock ticks steadily, marking this moment of transformation. Sarah outlines her vision briefly, using this experience as a case study in the upcoming judicial training program. Her words paint a picture of how personal biases and rushed judgments can impact the legal system, even among those most dedicated to justice. The afternoon sun breaks through the clouds again, illuminating the courtroom in warm light. The timing seems perfect, as if nature itself is underlining the moment's significance. Judge Thompson's pen moves across his notepad, no longer writing citations but taking notes on Sarah's impromptu lecture. In the gallery, Linda Chen, the young associate from earlier, watches with growing admiration. She sees in real time how a potential confrontation transforms into a teaching moment, noting how Sarah's response exemplifies the very principles she teaches about professional grace under pressure. Tom Peterson rises again, this time to add his perspective on the importance of understanding context in judicial decisions. His words complement Sarah's, creating a spontaneous but powerful dialogue about the evolution of legal practice and the constant need for self-reflection. The tension from earlier has completely dissipated, replaced by an atmosphere of collective learning. Even the bailiff leans forward slightly, engaged in this unexpected turn of events. The wooden panels of the courtroom seem to glow in the late afternoon light, witnesses to this moment of judicial growth. Judge Thompson finally raises his hand, not to silence, but to acknowledge. Ms. Mitchell, your handling of this situation demonstrates exactly why you hold your current position. He picks up the contempt citation, now transformed into a symbol of the day's lesson. The fine is not only dismissed but will be replaced by an invitation to speak at our next judicial conference. Sarah accepts this resolution with a gracious nod, her professional demeanor never wavering. The same commitment to justice that drove her to answer Mrs. Rodriguez's call now guides her response to this situation. The courtroom feels different now, as if the space itself has been transformed by this exchange of understanding and respect. Sarah transforms the experience into a positive change, working with the Judicial Committee to create new programs that promote understanding and respect in the legal system. The fine money becomes the first contribution to a new scholarship, supporting aspiring law students, turning an unexpected moment into a stepping stone for progress. 1 month later, Sarah stands at the podium of the State Judicial Conference, addressing a room full of judges, attorneys, and legal professionals. The morning light streams through the convention center's windows, highlighting the diverse faces in the audience, including Judge Thompson, now seated in the front row. Our experiences shape our understanding. Sarah begins, her voice carrying the weight of wisdom earned through years of practice. She shares the story of that afternoon in Courtroom B, not as a tale of conflict, but as a narrative of growth. Judge Thompson nods appreciatively, having become an unexpected ally in her mission for judicial reform. The conference room buzzes with energy as Sarah unveils the new Context and Compassion in Court program. Developed in collaboration with Judge Thompson, the initiative aims to bridge the gap between strict procedural adherence and humanitarian legal practice. The program's first workshop already has a waiting list of 50 judges. Meanwhile, in a small office across town, Mrs. Rodriguez hugs her children, secure in the knowledge that Sarah's legal intervention that crucial afternoon had protected their future. The custody agreement now sits signed and filed, a testament to the importance of answering urgent calls, regardless of timing. Back at the conference, Sarah introduces the Building Bridges Scholarship, funded initially by what would have been her fine money, but now grown through contributions from judges and attorneys touched by her story. The scholarship specifically targets students committed to combining procedural excellence with compassionate practice. Judge Thompson takes the stage next, sharing his perspective on their shared experience. His words carry the humility of a learned man acknowledging growth, mixed with the enthusiasm of someone discovering a new approach to their life's work. The audience listens intently, recognizing the rare opportunity to witness such candid judicial reflection. The initiative spreads beyond their state, catching the attention of legal professionals nationwide. Sarah's inbox fills with requests for similar programs, each email representing an opportunity to transform more courtrooms into spaces where justice and understanding coexist. Her calendar now includes speaking engagements at judicial conferences across the country. Linda Chen, the young associate who witnessed the original incident, sits in her office reviewing her application to become a mentor at the new program. Her own experience watching Sarah transform a challenging moment into an opportunity for systemic change has deeply influenced her approach to legal practice. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across Sarah's office as she reviews the first quarter's impact report. The numbers tell a compelling story. 25 judges enrolled in the new training program, 15 scholarships awarded, and countless conversations started about balancing procedure with compassion in courtrooms nationwide. A gentle knock at her door reveals Maria, the court clerk who played such a crucial role that day. She carries fresh statistics showing a marked decrease in contempt citations across the district, accompanied by increased ratings for judicial sensitivity and understanding. The data validates what they had hoped, that empathy and order can coexist in legal spaces. The day concludes with a small ceremony where Judge Thompson presents the first Building Bridges scholarship to a promising law student. The young recipient's eyes shine with the same determination Sarah had felt decades ago, standing at the beginning of her own legal journey. As Sarah drives home that evening, she reflects on how a potentially negative experience transformed into a catalyst for positive change. The setting sun paints the sky in brilliant colors, reminiscent of that afternoon in Courtroom B when one moment of misunderstanding bloomed into an opportunity for growth that continues to ripple through the legal community, touching lives and transforming perspectives, one courtroom at a time.